there's sort of a reason that they have their own currency, right? And it's for fiat extraction on their own population, and some sort of semblance of central bank control and nationalistic kind of ideas and things like that too. But there's less game theory to suggest that some country, right? There's not going to be Doge land that all just has Doge, unless it's like all the insiders all move there, right? They all take over a little island somewhere, maybe. Now they have an incentive because they have a bunch of it. They want to spend it. They want to accept it. They want to grow their own network within there. So it's difficult to like play out game theory of suggesting that there will be a bunch of different currencies, but it is possible. But there's gonna be like selfish reasons for somebody else wanting to use or accept a different currency rather than Bitcoin, and it'll be from the same concepts of fiat, right? Pre-mined and insider allocation.
Yep.
Like that's the reason why fiat exists, is pre-mined and insider centralization.
Yep, and it's all emanates from us. Again, it's this mindset. We let the governments do it. Like money was here before nation states, and it'll be here after nation states. Again, these are things that people just don't realize. Like they, like the comment earlier of, well, I'll do it when the government says I can't. I mean, what are you gonna, you waiting for, but that's like school. Again, government run school has taught us to comply. We don't ask questions. When can I go to the bathroom? Put my hand up. When can I go on vacation? Hey, when can I leave school? When do I go to the next class? And it just bell rings and you're trained through that, audible tone of like bell ringing. Okay, like I'm off. That's how, we're just a bunch of little financial slaves in a cage. That's, look, you're born with the birth certificate in America and a social security number. I'm sure it's a similar thing in Canada. And that's the debt. You go to the usdebtclock.org, you look at it, and debt per taxpayer, debt per citizen right there. That's how they stick the debt right on you. You're in a financial cage right when you're born. And so that's how they perpetuate the Ponzi scheme over time. And if you like that, if you're cool with that, then sure, XRP it up, Ethereum up, gold and silver it up, baby. I mean, like we've been down these paths. We've tried these things, keep using your fiat. That's the world we've been in. And if that's cool with you, you like what you see around you, then hey, God bless, by all means, you can go at it. But I just see a much different life going forward, where incentives are completely flipped on their head and not redoing, but remaking the architecture of the system, reorienting people so consumers and producers on the same side of the table. And the government is naturally defunded over time, which is great for the people in government, because then they don't feel like they have to go to the government and only follow the Nancy Pelosi stock trader in order to get ahead in life. Like they can actually go be productive in society. They can go spend more time with their families, whatever it might be. It's a beautiful thing, because the natural incentives will heal all the different things. They'll flow down like the waterfall down the river, and you can't have the good society, honest society, from dishonest money, like we've mentioned multiple times. And it just goes back to the nature of things, the mindset of humans overcomplicating, and people not wanting to put in the work. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like the world sucks right now. Like everything's super expensive. Like everybody I know, like I don't know super wealthy people, but everybody I know, there's some point in a conversation where they'll complain about the cost of living. They'll say, "Oh, I had to buy this thing and it was way more expensive," or "Housing's really expensive, gas is really expensive." Maybe it's like a cathartic, like trying to connect to other people, but it's like, why is that a common ground we have? Why is everybody complaining about the cost of living? Why is everything getting expensive? Of course, we know the answers to that, right? It's fiat printing. It's the cost of living goes up as the money supply goes up, because it takes more dollars to get the same amount of goods. But nobody else knows that. Everybody is just struggling. Like people are struggling out there, and so it's crazy to me when people start saying Bitcoin is bad, Bitcoin's a scam, don't buy Bitcoin. It's like, you are resisting what will save you, what will actually help humanity. Like if you're against Bitcoin, you are against humanity, whether you know it or not. You actually want a worse future for people. Of course, that's putting it very bluntly, and I'm sure they don't realize that, but it's their ignorance that makes them not realize that. So, I mean, Bitcoin is hope. Bitcoin is hope for the future, that that things will get more affordable over time, that we will benefit from the abundance and prosperity of human nature to develop better technology and become deflationary. That's what Bitcoin is to me. Bitcoin is hope.
Yep. Bitcoin is hope. Hope.com. Speaking of hope.com, What do we think? What's going to play out here? What's Saylor going to get to in Bitcoin? I know people don't like talking about it, but it is, I think, something to think about, because like, I don't think his goal here is just, I was going to say to get as much Bitcoin as possible, but that is kind of his goal. Where does this go? Like what comes next here for somebody with 1 million Bitcoin, assuming that Bitcoin's going to go to million, then 10 million, then 100 million, then a billion, then 10 billion. What the hell happens? Like, what the hell happens? And it's funny because Strategy is obviously a corporation that you can invest in. The United States, Canada are corporations that you can't invest in. They're the same thing though. But what happens here? Like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Where are you guys sitting with this right now? Because it sure seems to me like a lot of people out there kind of have their thumbs up their butts and they're losing all this Bitcoin. But I also think that Bitcoiners, in my opinion anyways, don't really appreciate what's happening right now. Whether you think Saylor's going to do good or bad with this Bitcoin, the reality is that these Bitcoin are being taken off the market, which as demand grows for this Bitcoin thing, the prices of these sats are going to continuously go up regardless of how much money they print. That doesn't matter too much, but there's more demand chasing a smaller amount of units here, which are called Satoshis. So he's taken Bitcoin, pulling them off the market. Bitcoiners who have Bitcoin in self-custody are going to be the main beneficiaries of this, whether they kind of realize that or not. But like, what's the end game here? What happens?
Well, it's like Rajat says, where every Bitcoin runs out at every single price, and Saylor is basically acting as this buyer of first resort or last resort or whatever. There's just this constant bid, and there's only so much Bitcoin that people are willing to sell at $74,000, and Saylor will buy as much as they possibly can with their access to the capital markets, with the instruments that are popular to be able to sell. So this has actually been theorized for like a really long time. I believe, I don't know if it was Satoshi or maybe one of the other early adopters of Bitcoin. On the talk forum, they talked about how what would happen if somebody came in and just started buying as much Bitcoin as possible. And essentially they said, like, the more they try to buy, the less they end up being able to buy. And that's the future of MicroStrategy. They're constantly going to be trying to buy Bitcoin, and they'll be able to buy less of it.
Yeah.
But that's not currently what's happening, because there's an asymmetry of knowledge. There's people who are, there's Arthur Hayes again, notorious Arthur Hayes here, calling for 500,000 Bitcoin price by the end of the year, so that he can hype up the price, so he can dump his old coins and be able to buy some more tank tops, right? This guy just all he wants to do, like, counter trade that guy. That guy's absolutely a menace. And and he's the one selling to Saylor, right? These people with tons of old Bitcoin, they're the ones willing to sell at 72,000, and Saylor is not, right? As soon as this is a black hole of Bitcoin, right? Like, their cost of capital compared to the compound annual growth rate projection of Bitcoin is just crazy. It begins to just look insane, like a chart that, like, yeah, who cares about throwing that extra dividend payment to those STRC holders at a certain point, because our balance sheet is just so much. We're just so valuable because of our Bitcoin holdings. So, yeah, MSTR is going to be a multi-trillion dollar company at some point, and they're just going to continue to buy Bitcoin. That's what I see.
I think they could be like the Warren Buffett or the Berkshire Hathaway of Bitcoin. They can buy whatever they want, right? They're just accumulating capital.
But he said he's not going to buy anything else. I mean, that same, I guess, is, the fog of war stuff going on. But yeah, sorry, Rajat, go ahead.
He can, right? That's the point, right? He can.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants with the money.
Well, what else would you buy right now? Like, Bitcoin's the thing to buy right now. You wouldn't want to buy a business that you have to put time and effort and energy into, that might or might not. Like he said this multiple times, like, most mergers and acquisitions for large corporations, you have to pay a premium for them. They end up being net negative for the shareholders. And there's this huge onboarding, there's this consolidation of work, workers, all this kind of stuff that has to happen. Wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to buy anything else but Bitcoin.
Yeah. But I mean, in a Bitcoin standard, right? Like, when, let's say, for example, when the world is on a Bitcoin standard and their Bitcoin isn't growing as fast as, let's say, a company in Bitcoin, right? And everybody's already adopted it. They have 4 million Bitcoin or whatever. Nobody else has any, and there's this companies to be bought. and people are willing to sell them. Like they can do whatever they want. That's the point. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to be stuck buying companies. Maybe you guys are right, but they can do literally whatever they want to.
Yeah.
100%. There might be additional Bitcoin-based infrastructure where it makes sense
Yeah.
too. Like you get fees for putting Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, routing fees.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of Bitcoin. I don't know. It could make sense, right? To participate in the Bitcoin network itself in some way. Who knows what
Do you
else
guys think
beyond
they could build a
Lightning ends
layer
up
2?
happening? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
They could build their own,
Blockstream,
right? Yeah.
Blockstream built a side chain that's popular, right? They
Yeah,
built
yeah.
Liquid.
right?
Liquid.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they didn't build some of that stuff like that, honestly. Like whether it's, I don't know what Tether, or 21 is trying to do. If they've insinuated they're going to build a bunch of different stuff on Bitcoin and for Bitcoin, so we'll see. But Sailor, I'd be shocked if they didn't build stuff for the network, and I think that will be interesting in and of itself. Just again, another marker maybe to which direction he's going and how he's thinking. If they really start coming out with different protocols or layers or products or services on Bitcoin, that's going to be very interesting, I think, and that'll be a whole new conversation. And once again, will be the same stuff like, oh, he's just it's just a facade, who knows what. So that's going to be really interesting.
I agree.
Yeah.
I kind of play it out long term in my head of like, when I think about the insurance industry right now, I got some close friends who are in insurance, and I just think that the whole insurance itself is the biggest kind of scam ever. It's not in a way because you still need it, like you want some sort of insurance, but just the way that the fiat mixed with insurance, where there's more and more people, the incentive is to kind of rip people off, to like maximize to try to get it back. Right. And then it ends up costing more and more for the next time and the next person. And they feel like they want to rip it off too, because they feel like they're getting ripped off. It's just not a fair thing. And I feel like imagine if you had, let's say, 1 million Bitcoin and you launched this insurance company where there was literally no chance for you to ever be in any sort of financial issues. You could almost issue this insurance where people almost are incentivized to be honest, where if you don't have any claims for a year, you get like 95% of it back. Something like that. And if you had that as like kind of a worldwide insurance, I don't know how it will work, but I'm sure you could utilize like AI and different things to kind of make that become real. But man, just think about how many people that would wipe out if you had the ability to do something like that. Just one part of our lives, if you could kind of innovate and reinvent that industry. And I think that Sailor would be the perfect guy for that, just because they have so much capital. There would be no loss or no risk of them ever being underwater. And it would actually get back to like people being honest and being incentivized to be honest, versus you feel like you're getting ripped off, so you're going to cheat it. You cheated it, so it's more expensive, so more people are mad, so they want to rip it off. It's just like a very sick cycle of fiat and insurance. And I just think that industry, more than anything else, is just ripe for innovation and could be a very profitable thing. I think that'd be a lot more profitable than running a Lightning network, but or a Lightning node, or it could be both too.
Sure.
I think it's coming. I mean, I think there's some companies out there that have been buying Bitcoin, right? New York Bank Mellon, stuff like that. But then there's like Meanwhile, they did denominate. You can look them up. They denominate their
Meanwhile? I keep seeing that. Is that on your channel, Brennan?
Yeah. So they're the sponsor on our channel, and they are Bitcoin denominated life insurance company. So it's all you can look up their financial statements, everything. It's all denominated in Bitcoin, which is really interesting to see, because I really haven't seen anyone's actual statements all denominated in Bitcoin. So it's actually pretty cool. I can go to their website and look at it all. But aside from that, I always battled and argued with one of my buddies who was a whole life insurance guy for a long time. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Rockefeller and all these guys do it. And I get it. Like that's awesome. But to your point, it doesn't make sense on a fiat system. In a fiat system, that's the problem with it. So it's like, for Bitcoin, like why would I buy Bitcoin when I'm guaranteed 3, 4, or 5% back in a whole life insurance policy, and like I can lend against it? Well, like I can do that with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's also going up at 30, 50, 70% a year. So like why would I do that and just take the 3 or 4% from the bonds that all the insurance companies doing is generally buying something in the bond market, and then I'm getting 4 or 5% back. So I'm losing on the rate that I'm getting back, and there's some tax advantages, things like that. But my whole point with all this, though, is that Meanwhile, like some of these companies that are just using Bitcoin, to your point, Jor, where it's like the incentives were just upside down in insurance. And you could look at like Lloyd of London. I'm going on a tangent really quick here, but like Lloyd's of London. So like, again, classic, like, you know, the city of London for hundreds of years now, the central banking and the banking cartel, what have they been doing? They've been taking the side of both, you know, taking both sides of the trade here. So the Vickers Armament Company, right? Selling ammunition to both sides of World War I, or the city of London, what's going on in Iran, the Strait of Hormuz. Well, guess what? They had a bunch of proxies and they would F up ships in the region. And then guess who owns all the insurance on all the ships? Lloyd's of London. And so like, you can't make this stuff up. So, you know, it's like they're hemorrhaging, you know, extorting the whole market. And that's not to go down that road because we're getting toward the end of the show, but I think that's kind of what's going on in the Straits right now. And a lot of people just don't want to see it. They don't want to admit it. UK is just getting absolutely hammered, and the Lloyd's of London's been completely exposed. And that's where Trump said, yeah, no, we'll actually back all the ships in that region. We'll provide the insurance. And so I think the throat's being ripped out of a lot of the banking cartel, and really no one sees it because the media, of course, I mean, people just don't think like that. So all that being said, again, insurance, though, coming back to us, it starts to work when you're on a Bitcoin standard. It's like, you know, meanwhile, if you're putting in a 10 Bitcoin premium policy, by the end of that, you know, whatever it is, you know, 10 years or 30 years, whatever you're doing, then you would have 18 Bitcoin. And there's ways they do that, and they use old, you know, not to go down the rabbit holes with it, but you can go look it up. But it's that they use old, you know, they find whales, they have, you know, miners, they do these swaps basically to adjust the cost basis of each other's Bitcoin, so people aren't incurring taxes. And they take like there's like a 3% spread, and everyone like takes a 1%, you know, fee off of that basically. And so, you know, not going to sit here and explain it and lose a bunch of people, but it's really fascinating. And to the whole point of incentives, what we talk about all show is the incentives are fixed if you use Bitcoin, and you start seeing it. You're like, oh my gosh, like this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I was arguing about with my buddy who's a, you know, fiat whole life insurance guy. And you just didn't know it at the time, but the incentives need to be flipped with the money you use. And then everything starts to heal. Now it makes sense. Now the insurance actually makes sense. If you want it, if you feel like you need it, great, then here it is, but you denominate it and do it in Bitcoin, everything changes. So anyway, not to plug them and shill them, but it's a good point, Jor, because it is effed up. People are getting mad at insurance, rightfully so, but the insurance, like we said earlier, just got to capitalism harder. You know, like, what do you mean? Like, you just got to learn the game. It's like, hey, Michael, right. No one can learn the game because no one has time. They're on the fiat hamster wheel, so they don't have time to learn the effing game. So like, how do we fix that? How do you out-propagandize the state? You can't have 8 billion people just learn the existing system because they don't have time to, because they're stuck on a fiat hamster wheel. So we need to rip them off that somehow. Big game. It's a big goal, but we're going to do it.
It's a worthwhile mission, though.
It is. It's the most worthwhile one I've found. I'm sure for you guys too. And many in the chat.
Boys, kind of mentioned it just now, but we'll start wrapping up here. I just want to say, though, I don't know if I've ever seen a more active chat going through here, like in anything I've ever been a part of before.
On fire chat.
Like, so many conversations.
Yes.
That's the hard thing. It's like impossible to even like pay attention to anything here.